Exposed. My son's fiancée mocked me in French. What I discovered changed everything forever. Susan felt her heart race as she hovered in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly baked donuts swirling around her. The soft glow of the early evening light bathed the room, reminders of her small town and its cozy charm filling her with pride. She glanced at the family cookbook, handwritten pages filled with recipes passed down from her mother, and felt a rush of love for her modest life. But tonight, everything was about to shift. Jake, her bright-eyed 17-year-old, burst into the kitchen, his charming smile igniting an overwhelming warmth in her chest. "Mom, Claire's coming to dinner," he exclaimed, and, like an electric shock, a pang of anxiety zapped through her. Claire, his beautiful, sophisticated fiancée with an accent that could sweep anyone off their feet, was everything Susan was not. Flashes of insecurity gripped her as she wondered what this French woman would think of her simple cooking, her working-class background her entire life. As they sat around the table, Susan's heart raced. She served her homemade chicken and dumplings, her pride radiating with each dish placed before them. Claire smiled, a dazzling smile hiding a cold sheen in her eye, and Susan's stomach nodded. The conversation flowed around them, laughter and banter, but as Susan gathered the courage to ask Claire about her day, she caught the tail end of a whispered exchange between Claire and Jake. "C'est un plat de pauvre," Claire whispered, her tone mocking. Susan felt the air thicken, her pulse quickening. In that instant, the laughter felt discordant, echoing in her chest like a judgment. Poor? She had come from a long line of hard-working Americans, proud of every long hour spent in their family-owned donut shop. This woman didn't know them that a shudder of humiliation washed over her, and before she could stop herself, her voice shattered the moment. "Excuse me?" The mixture of pain and indignation was palpable as she locked eyes with Claire. Jake's expression shifted, the hurt in his eyes telling Susan that he didn't want her to face Claire. "What did you say?" Claire brushed it off, but Susan saw through the nonchalance. Jake defended her, confused and infatuated, questioning his mother's hurt. Tension clawed at them, stretching the love between them until it threatened to snap. Susan felt small, invisible, like the very heart she had poured into this family was being mocked. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Determined not to let this moment define her, Susan threw herself into their donut shop. She spent sleepless nights perfecting recipes and testing flavors, pouring every ounce of her heart into each sweet. She turned their family haven into a gathering spot, a community hub built on love and resilience. Then, the local paper caught wind of her efforts, spotlighting her story. The more they dug into Claire's privileged past, the more the dynamics in the neighborhood shifted. Conversations turned, and whispers drifted like sweet scents in the air. As Susan found herself basked in the community's growing support, Claire started to fade, the laughter now tinged with uncertainty, the pride she once exuded crumbling slightly. But within her own home, things were not so simple. Jake remained loyal to Claire, a hard choice increasingly steeped in tension. Would they find a way back to each other, or would pride drive an irreparable wedge between them? The question rattled Susan's heart as she looked at her son, longing to bridge the gap that seemed insurmountable. With the next few days, Susan felt as if a storm had settled between her and her son. The atmosphere in the house had shifted. Every glance and every word carried an unspoken heaviness. Despite her newfound strength at the donut shop, the hurt from that dinner with Claire lingered like a sour taste in the back of her throat. Jake tried to bridge the divide, often suggesting outings or family game nights. But every time they gathered, Claire's shadow hovered over them, even in her absence. Susan could see Jake's struggle. He was caught between his loyalty to his mother and his desire to protect the woman he loved. Each attempt at normalcy felt forced, and Susan sensed the unspoken tension hanging between them like a heavy fog. One Friday evening, as she was closing up shop, a familiar face walked in. It was Mrs. Thompson, one of their regular customers, who always sat at the corner booth with her knitting. "Susan, dear, I wanted to talk to you about Claire," she said, her voice dipping to a hush, as if mentioning the fiancé conjured some dark magic. Had she been in a different mood, Susan might have rolled her eyes. But there was something about Mrs. Thompson's tone that made her pause. "What about Claire?" she asked, leaning in. "Oh, honey, the other day at the tea shop, Claire was talking to a couple of ladies from the country club. Let us just say it wasn't flattering," Mrs. Thompson whispered, her brows knitted with concern. "She was bragging about how simple your food is, calling it peasant fare. She seemed to think she was above it all." A ripple of anger stirred inside Susan. So, this was the real Claire, the one who flashed a dazzling smile, but cast shadows everywhere she turned. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Susan felt her own heart betray her, racing with each word as old feelings of betrayal began to surface to Mrs. Thompson leaned closer, her knitted eyebrows furrowing. "I thought you should know, dear. I believe the town is starting to see her for who she really is. You deserve to have the community stand behind you, and I want you to know that we're with you." For the first time, Susan felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Claire's charm was wearing thin after all. Each woman in the town unknowingly filled the cracks of her own heart with new strength, boosting Susan's resolve to fight for what she held dear. When Susan returned home, she found Jake on the sofa, thumbing through his phone. His face was clouded with confusion. "Mom, I want to talk about Claire." He seemed to hesitate, his words stumbling over each other. Susan instinctively braced herself. "Jake, I know you love her, but I need you to understand there's more to her than you see." "I know, but—" He looked up, his blue eyes pleading. "She's not just a pretty face. It's not fair for you to dismiss her like that. You don't even give her a chance." The pain in his voice cut through Susan. "Jake, it's not about her being beautiful. It's about respect and how she sees our family." Silence thickened the air between them. Susan searched for the right words, the ones that would resonate with him while still protecting her heart. "Please trust me. I'm just trying to protect you." Jake stood abruptly, frustration etched into his features. "Maybe I should just go spend time with Claire. You're pushing me away." He stormed out of the living room, leaving Susan with an ache deep in her chest. As she stared after him, a wave of despair washed over her. Would she lose her son to the very thing she feared? Would Claire's influence ultimately sever their bond? The thought of Jake slipping further away loomed over Susan like the darkened horizon before a storm. She felt a tingle of urgency spark within her. Perhaps she needed to dig deeper. Maybe it was time to uncover the truth about Claire for herself. With a mix of fear and determination brewing inside her, Susan grabbed her jacket. She had to find Claire. There was no other choice. What would she uncover when she confronted her? Would it be enough to save her son? The night air hit her face as she stepped outside, a wave of cold washing over her. Within her, the stakes had never felt higher. But what if Claire wasn't just a victim of wealth and privilege? What if there was more than meets the eye? The night was brisk, each breath a cloud in the air, as Susan made her way to the tea shop where Claire often frequented. The streetlights flickered like distant stars, illuminating her path, but doing little to ease the turmoil churning inside her. With every step, she replayed the words from Mrs. Thompson, the words that now felt like a burning ember in her chest. As she approached the tea shop, her heart raced. This was Claire's domain, a place where she no doubt charmed the patrons with her delicate laughter and polished smile. But behind that facade, Susan now saw potential malice, the possibility of betrayal. Would Claire defend the things she'd said? Would she flaunt her privilege again and mock Susan to her face? Pushing the door open, the bell chimed above her, and the warmth wrapped around her momentarily, a stark contrast to the chill in her bones. The room was cozy, filled with the soft chatter of small groups enjoying their evening cups. Susan's eyes scanned the room until she spotted Claire sitting at a corner table. The woman gestured animatedly, her laughter ringing out, drawing the attention of those around her. Susan felt a bolt of determination surge through her. Clenching her fists, she navigated through the tables, her focus unwavering. Claire looked up, surprise washing over her features as she caught sight of Susan. The laughter died down, and a cloud of awkward silence filled the space between them. "Can we talk?" Susan's voice was steady, though the whirlwind inside felt anything but. Claire hesitated, narrowing her eyes slightly, as if processing Susan's sudden appearance. Then she smirked. "Of course, Susan. I'd love to hear what you have to say." Her tone dripped with sarcasm, and Susan could practically feel the eyes of the room on her. They found themselves outside, away from the murmurs of the tea shop, the night air wrapping them in suffocating tension. Susan took a deep breath, the cold air biting her lungs. "I heard some things you said about my food," Susan started, her voice low but firm. "About how it's just peasant fare." For a moment, Claire was quiet, her expression shifting from surprise to a mask of indifference. "Oh, that. I was just trying to fit in with the ladies. You know how these things go, right?" "It doesn't matter if you're trying to fit in," Susan replied, her heart pounding. "What you say about my family matters. It defines how you see us. And if you see us that way, then what does that say about you?" Claire crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "You're being overly sensitive." "It was just a joke, Susan." "Jokes can be unkind," Susan shot back, her voice rising. "You pretend to love Jake, but how you talk about our lives says otherwise." Claire raised an eyebrow, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "What do you want me to say? That I respect your simple life?" Susan took a step closer, her eyes locked onto Claire's. "I want you to be real. Stop pretending to be someone you're not just to impress others. Treat us like family." The cold bitterness in Claire's demeanor faded for a moment, replaced by something genuine. Stunned, Susan realized she struck a nerve. Perhaps Claire was just a villain in this story. Perhaps she was fighting her own battles beneath the surface. But just as quickly as the sincerity appeared, Claire covered it with a laugh. "Family? Susan, let us be real. You're not quite my idea of family." Bile rose in Susan's throat. So this was it. This was the woman Jake was choosing. Anger mixed with dread in her chest. "Think about it," Claire said, her tone light, but her words sharp. "You don't really want Jake to settle for less, do you? I'm the best he can do." Susan could feel the weight of those words. Was Claire really just a superficial dream for Jake? Or was there something more hidden beneath her bravado? The confrontation had not gone as Susan had hoped, but she could see clearly now. This night was only the beginning. With a newfound clarity, Susan turned to leave, but felt a stir of determination within. She wouldn't let Claire take her son away from her without a fight. And now, she needed to find out everything about this woman who threatened to take Jake away. What secrets lay behind Claire's poised exterior? What lengths would Susan have to go to protect her son? The quiet of the night enveloped her as she walked away, heartsick but resolute. The battle for Jake's heart had just begun. Susan walked slowly, her mind racing as the shadows of the street flickered past her. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the confrontation. The chill in the air seeped into her bones, but the flickering anger within kept her warm enough. Jake had never been one to rush into things. He always approached his relationships with a care that came from a place of genuine affection. So how had he landed in Claire's world? The thought stirred up a mess inside her, one filled with worry and anger, but also uncertainty. Hadn't she always raised him to value sincerity and kindness? Why was he drawn to someone so superficial? The buzzing of her phone broke through her spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Jake, something light and playful about his day. A heavy pang struck her heart. She could foresee what would happen if she ignored this. Scatter her worry like confetti, and soon he wouldn't be able to see past Claire's gilded charm. "Hey, can I call you?" She texted back, each finger tap infused with a mix of anxiety and hope. She stopped at a park bench. It's painted with glistening slightly from recent rain. Waiting for his response felt like an eternity, stretching the moments thin. She wanted to shout to the night, to let out all the confusion coiling tightly in her chest. Instead, she looked up to the sky, searching for solace in the stars. Let me guess. Jake's voice came through the speaker, easy and warm, yet still sending unfamiliar shivers down her spine. You're outside the tea shop, huh? How did you know? Well, the text came 3 minutes after you left. You always text when something bothers you. Susan sighed, resting against the bench. I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but it's about Claire. Things aren't tea as they seem with her. Jake's heartbeat echoed in the phone. What do you mean? She made some comments, Jake, unkind ones. And I think it's not just about the food. I don't think she sees us in a good light at all. Mom, come on. Everyone jokes around. His voice was calm, but there was a distant irritation creeping in. She's a good person. She loves me. Does she? Susan pressed, her voice rising again, feeling the sting of tears. Does loving you mean looking down on the people you care about? You deserve someone who respects all of you, not just the parts that shine. The silence stretched on. Each second felt like a small eternity. Susan imagined Jake's brow furrowing as he processed everything. Okay, can you meet me tomorrow? I'll be at the cafe around 4. He finally said, quiet but determined. We can talk about it. I want to hear you out. Please, promise me you'll keep an open mind. He sighed, the sound heavy with acceptance. I'll try. As they hung up, Susan's heart felt lighter, but her stomach churned. What if she was wrong? What if Claire truly was the one for Jake? It was a dilemma she never wanted to face. Trusting Claire felt impossible now. Determination surged again. If Jake was going to be with Claire, he had to understand her, who she really was, beyond the laugh and sparkle. And so, Susan spent the rest of the night devising a plan. Research, conversations, digging deeper. What was Claire hiding behind that lovely smile? The images of Claire's condescending laughter surfaced in her mind, and Susan resolved to uncover the truth. The following day would not just bring clarity. It would rewrite their story, and Susan wouldn't back down until she found out everything. The night had closed in, but dawn was just around the corner, and with it, the chance for revelation and change. Would Jake be open to hearing the truth? Or would he see it as just an attack on the woman he loved? The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the sleeping town. Susan tightened her scarf against the lingering morning chill. Her heart thudded in her chest as she made her way to the cafe. For the first time in a long while, she felt conflicted. Her hope was tangled with doubts, swirling in her mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind. Clutching a mug of steaming coffee, she took a seat by the window, each tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. Would Jake be receptive? What if he rejected her concerns completely? When he finally strolled in, his smile illuminated the room, the warmth of it melting away the frost surrounding her heart, if only for a moment. Jake waved, instantly drawing attention from some passing customers, their smiles genuine but shadows tinged with curiosity. Hey, Mom, he greeted, sitting down across from her. His presence was like a balm, but it quickly turned to a mixture of worry and anticipation as he glanced at her serious expression. What's wrong? He asked, concern flickering across his features. She took a deep breath, determination overriding her fear. Jake, I need you to listen to me. This isn't about me not liking Claire. It's about figuring out what she is really about. I swear, it's just jokes, Mom, he insisted, a hint of frustration coloring his tone. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. Remember when I talked about intuition? She pressed, leaning in, desperate to break past the defensive walls he was erecting. I sensed something, and it wasn't just random comments. She made a joke about my cooking something that fell off. Even after that, I heard her say something else in French. It felt like an insult. I think she might be hiding her true self. A flash of disbelief crossed his face. You're telling me she insulted you in another language? Why didn't you just confront her? Couldn't you misunderstand for a second? I understand how it sounds, she replied, her voice softening. But she has not just jokes and giggles, Jake. There's a condescension in the way she speaks. It's like she's trying to keep you up on a pedestal while pushing me down. Jake leaned back, crossing his arms as a myriad of thoughts danced in his eyes. The stillness between them was filled with the weight of vulnerability, a crack in the facade of normalcy. Okay, let us say you're right, he finally said, his voice lower, more thoughtful. What do you propose we do? I think we need to dig deeper. Talk to her, ask questions, approach her on neutral ground. Maybe get her talking about her family, her upbringing. Find out where these jokes come from, Susan suggested, her heart racing with the thrill of action. The more they spoke, the more Jake's expression shifted. She could see him processing, the wheels turning, the barriers beginning to crack. That's all well and good, but what if it's just you being paranoid? He looked away, contemplating her words, and for a fleeting moment, Susan wanted to shake him, to tear down the wall of defense he had built around Claire. Jake, listen, she urged. You can love someone and still see their flaws. Just promise me you'll keep your eyes open, don't get so wrapped up in the glitter that you miss the storm underneath. Then it hit her, a potential path forward, lighting a fire in her determination. I could arrange a small dinner at our place. Just us and Claire. I'll invite her, and we can see how she interacts if anything comes up that feels off. A new light flickered in Jake's eyes, a spark of possibility breaking through his uncertainty. Okay, I'll consider it, but only if I can choose the menu. It has to be casual, no pressure. Deal, Susan replied, relief washing over her. Yet, an undercurrent of anxiety still coursed through her veins. As they wrapped up their meeting, she couldn't shake a thought that lingered in her mind. Was she chasing shadows? Would it strengthen their bond or break it apart? As they left the cafe, a chilling wind swept through, sending a shiver down her spine. The answer to her questions lay ahead, just beyond the horizon. Would Claire reveal her true self, or would she continue to wear the mask? That evening, as Susan planned for dinner, she felt something heavy settle in her chest. The battle for Jake's heart wasn't just about Claire. It was about navigating a minefield of emotions, family loyalty, and love. And waiting in the wings was the possibility that all her fears might be justified or completely unfounded. With a final glance at the setting sun, Susan whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The days leading up to the dinner felt like an eternity. Susan immersed herself in preparations, as if the act of cooking could somehow ward off her fears. She spent hours scrolling through recipes, searching for the perfect dish that would blend comfort with a dash of excitement. Jake enthusiastically suggested pizza, a friendly nod to their family traditions. "Make sure we have enough cheese, Mom," he joked, playfully nudging her. But in between their laughter, Susan caught glimpses of his growing apprehension, the tension clinging to him like an unwelcome guest on the day of the dinner. Susan woke early, her pulse racing with anticipation. As she chopped vegetables and kneaded dough, a storm brewed inside her, a whirl of hope and dread. What if Claire chose this moment to show her true colors? Later, as the clock inched closer to 6, Susan set the table. She placed Jake's childhood drawings on display, a layer of warmth over the intricate arrangements of silverware. Each piece of china held a history, carrying their family moments, and in that intimacy, she found a sliver of courage. When Claire finally arrived, Susan's heart fluttered. Claire wore a vibrant dress, a swirl of colors that danced around her as she moved. She brought a bouquet of fresh flowers, a sweet gesture that made Susan's heart flutter and sink all at once. "Beautiful flowers," she said, forcing a smile as Claire placed them on the table. "Just a little something to add a cheerful touch," Claire replied, her voice bright, but Susan could hear the underlying note of her carefulness, a semblance of charm that felt rehearsed. Jake joined them in the kitchen, and the atmosphere shifted from polite to lighthearted. As they made the pizza, laughter filled the air. Claire and Jake playfully fought over toppings, half with pepperoni, half with vegetables, and for a brief moment, the tension slipped away. Yet, as they gathered around the table, Susan felt Claire's gaze cut through her. It was as if Claire was silently grading her, assessing the worthiness of this woman sitting across from her. "Your cooking smells incredible," Claire exclaimed, her tone enthusiastic but carrying a hint of sarcasm. The words hung heavy in the air, and Susan's gut twisted. "Thanks," Susan replied, putting on her best brave face, desperately pushing back the unease that threatened to surface. There was an antagonism behind Claire's smiles that made Susan's heart pound. "Did you make that special sauce?" Claire asked, licking her lips. "I hope it's not too bland." The chuckle that followed was small but loaded. Jake glanced between them, unaware of the tension cracking the surface. Throughout dinner, Susan took note of every exchange, each laugh tinged with an edge. Claire's jokes were peppered with pointed remarks, each playful jab digging into Susan's defenses. "Remember when Jake accidentally burned the lasagna that time?" Claire laughed, looping her arm around Jake. "Such a disaster." The laughter continued, but Susan's chest constricted. "That might have been my fault, too. I didn't exactly help him," she replied, forcing a laugh of her own, but it felt hollow as they cleared the table. Her intuition screamed at her. This was more than just playful banter. There was malice there hidden beneath a polished smile. "Can I help with those?" Jake offered, turning to Susan. But the exchange was over. For every moment of connection, there were 2 moments of discomfort. As they moved back to the cozy living room, the atmosphere thick with unresolved tension, Susan knew she had to confront Claire. Not just for her own peace of mind or Jake's well-being, but for the ties that bound their futures together. Before she could find the right words, Claire turned, fixing her with an icy gaze. "You know, I just thought of a great joke. How do you tell the difference between a recipe and a disaster?" The punchline lingered in the air, heavy and unsettling. Susan's heart raced. This was the moment to spark change, to peel back those layers. Before she could respond, Jake's laughter echoed, breaking the impending tension. But inside, Susan felt a simmering storm. What would she choose to reveal? The confrontation lay ahead, a clash of wills that could either destroy or illuminate their bond. As she locked eyes with Claire, a whispered resolve formed in her heart. Let us see how far the facade goes with each careful breath. She prepared for battle knowing that soon, all truths would surface, and she didn't need to confront Claire head-on. Would Jake stand by her side? Would they emerge stronger or irrevocably fractured? The air felt thick with unspoken words as they settled onto the cozy couch, the remnants of dinner still hanging in the atmosphere like a ghost. Susan could sense Claire's effort to keep the sparkle in her eyes, but it flickered like a flame in a draft. The light-hearted banter was gone, replaced by an uneasy tension. Jake was oblivious to the underlying strife. He leaned back, eyes bright with energy from the dinner. "Want to play a game?" he suggested, a glimmer of hope in his voice. "Sure thing, buddy," Claire chirped, her smile wide, but her expression almost vacant. Susan mirrored his enthusiasm, trying to pull the pieces together, desperate to bring back the laughter. But as they began to pull out board games, the social magic of the evening hung fragile. Claire shot Susan another sidelong glance, a flash of something sharper than mere annoyance piercing the air. The moment froze, and in that silence, Susan felt the wheels of fate turning. What would she uncover if she chose to push back? "Okay, how about we play charades?" Susan offered, forcing a light tone, feeling the warmth of community slip through her fingers. Just like old times. Jake's face lit up, the excitement contagious, at least for him. Claire rolled her eyes slightly, but it was still hidden behind her mask of charm. "Only if you promise not to embarrass yourself, Susan." "Hey, I'll show you embarrassing." Susan laughed, but her heart clenched at the jab. The game began, laughter erupting from Jake as he acted like a dog, bounding around the room. "Bingo!" he shouted, causing Susan to chuckle as she aimed a playful kick at him. But the moment was interrupted by Claire's sharp retort. "If only your acting skills were as good as your baking skills, right? Burnt lasagna. Anyone?" The laughter that followed felt staged, and the warmth that should come with it curled into an uncomfortable knot in Susan's stomach. She turned her gaze toward Jake, his laughter a lure to fight through the storm. All right, my turn. Using this opportunity, she would play hard, unleash her truth while still smiling. Okay, I'm ready to guess what I am. As she leapt into her act, she couldn't shake the feeling that Claire's eyes were glued to her, dissecting her every move. Would this whole charade become a game for Claire to win against her? Death! Claire shouted, filled with mirth, seemingly unaware of the edge in her voice. Excuse me? Susan blinked, surprised. I mean, nowhere near something exciting. Claire continued, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, trying to salvage the joke, but the tension hung like a cloud. With resolve shifting in her gut, Susan decided to elevate the stakes. Wasn't it time for a real game? How about we switch gears, she said, voice steady, and play a round of honesty. Jake looked up, confusion mixed with curiosity. What do you mean? Like each of us shares a truth about ourselves, Susan suggested, feeling the air thicken. Something we've never revealed. Claire hesitated, her brows knitting together as her carefully crafted facade threatened to crack. Sounds risky, she replied, her voice slightly strained. Simon, we're all friends here. I'll start. Susan pressed, her heart pounding wildly. There would be no more hiding the truth had to come out. As the atmosphere shifted around them, Susan felt a weight lift slightly, a thrill coursing through her. Would Claire be willing to reveal her underlying fears instead of just jabs? All right, I'll go first. Susan took a deep breath, preparing to expose a vulnerability, something personal that could shift everything. I've always been afraid of losing my family, afraid that I'll never be enough. The silence that followed hung heavy in the room, palpable. Jake's eyes darted between them, a fragile bridge holding them together. Claire's response loomed. Yet for the first time, uncertainty rippled across her sleek exterior. Would she break the tension and share, or would she double down on the mockery? What is her truth? Can she really reveal herself beneath the bravado? Susan wondered, the stakes suddenly higher as she awaited Claire's reply. But just as Claire opened her mouth, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, a sound that would change the entire course of the evening. The crash shattered the moment, sending all three heads spinning toward the kitchen. The familiar clatter of plates met their ears, each sound a reminder of the fragility of the atmosphere they'd just crafted. Susan's heart raced as she shot a worried glance at Jake, who now wore a look of confusion mixed with concern. Mom? Jake called out, his youthful innocence battling the tension thickening in the air. Everything's okay. Claire replied too quickly, her voice slightly shrill. But there was something different about her tone, a hint of urgency layered beneath the facade. Susan stood up, the pressure of the moment weighing heavily on her. I'll check it out. She crossed the threshold into the kitchen, her heart pounding against her ribs. What had just happened? The tension they'd been navigating was veering into chaos, and she felt the need to take control before it spiraled completely. As she entered the dim light of the kitchen, the smell of something burnt tickled her nose. A pan had toppled off the counter, remnants of a failed dessert strewn across the floor like a dismal confetti. She spotted Claire at the sink, arms crossed tight against her chest, and the look on her face was anything but reassuring. You okay? Susan asked, trying to keep her voice light despite the weight in the room. Fine. Claire shrugged, but the dullness in her eyes betrayed her. Susan dove right into the mess on the floor. Here, let me help, she said, but Claire didn't budge. I've got it, Claire said, a touch too harsh. They stood there in an unyielding stalemate, their breaths synchronizing with the awkward silence. Susan felt the tension from the living room crumbling between them, but it was obvious that Claire was battling demons of her own. Listen, I didn't mean to push the honesty thing, Susan began hesitantly. Right, because bringing your heavy stuff into our fun night is totally fair, Claire snapped, her eyes flaring with something deeper. Susan felt a pang of hurt. That's not what I intended. Oh, really? Because it felt like a deliberate attempt to win the Who's More Vulnerable contest. Claire scoffed that a ripple of frustration coursed through Susan. What was happening? Here they were, standing in a broken kitchen, and all she wanted was connection. I just thought it was time we thought, what? That we just bare our souls when clearly we have a long history of things. Claire shot back, her voice trembling. In that moment, the truth emerged, sharp and unforgiving. Susan realized how this wasn't just about the words spoken. It was about the history trapped beneath. They had both battled silently, but now the pieces were falling into place. I care about you, Susan exclaimed, her heart pounding. Why can't we be honest? We're family and family should talk through things. Claire's jaw clenched, and for a second, Susan saw the flicker of vulnerability behind the mask. Family, but before Claire could continue, the sudden thud of heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway, and Jake's voice broke their moment. What is taking so long? Susan remained locked in a silent plea with Claire. Would they crack open this hard shell tonight, or let it lie hidden under laughter and memories? Just then, before Claire could answer, Jake burst into the kitchen, round-eyed and excited. I found something amazing on your Instagram, Mom. You should see it. What is it? Susan asked, her heart still racing. You'll just have to look, he said, bouncing on the balls of his feet in excitement. Susan shared a look with Claire. Their simmering confrontation was interrupted. The timing fell off, but part of Susan hoped this could unite them rather than drive them further apart. Yes, she followed Jake back into the living room. Susan couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was going to change everything. But how? Would Claire finally peel back her layers, or would she retreat deeper into her fortress? The uncertainty hung over them like a storm cloud, ready to unleash whatever it kept locked away. Jake danced ahead, animated and full of energy, dragging Susan from the weight of the kitchen's confrontation. She tried to shake off the lingering tension, focusing instead on her son's excitement. Kids had a way of lifting the mood, didn't they? She wanted to believe that. She needed to believe that. Mom, sit, Jake urged, making a grand gesture toward the couch as if welcoming royalty. He plopped down, bouncing in delight. You have to see this. I can't stop laughing. Susan forced a smile, settling beside him, but her mind was still entangled with thoughts of Claire. The room felt different, charged like a live wire, and she could almost hear the unspoken words hanging in the air. Would getting lost in Jake's enthusiasm dull the edges of their argument, or would it amplify them when it was just the two of them again? Okay, Susan said, leaning in closer to Jake's phone as he held out triumphantly. What is so funny? It's this video of a mom dancing. Jake chuckled. She is so bad, but like so good. You have to see it. As Jake started the video, Susan caught a glimpse of Claire hovering at the doorway, her arms still crossed. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, and the vulnerability she had seen in Claire's expression earlier flickered back. But with the sound of laughter erupting from the phone, Claire quickly looked away and disappeared back into the hallway. The comedic clip played on, and laughter filled the room, creating a brief shield against the storm brewing beneath the surface. Susan couldn't help but join Jake in his giggles. The carefree energy was infectious, momentarily cutting through the heavy air. See, Mom? You should totally do this, Jake exclaimed, nudging her as he replayed the clip. Dance like that? I think not. Susan shot back, shaking her head with a playful smile. But deep down, the thoughts settled in. When was the last time she had really let loose? When had she stopped connecting with herself, with joy? Why not? You could go viral, Jake teased, a spark lighting up his eyes. Or I could turn you into a meme. Mom fails 101. The playful banter continued, but as the skit wrapped up, Susan couldn't help but feel the weight of Claire's absence. That familiar longing surfaced within her, a wish to laugh together, to unite, to move past the barriers they built. Did Jake sense it too? The shadow of tension teetering just outside their moment of laughter? Hey, she said suddenly, her voice softer. What if we all tried dancing? Just a fun family thing. It could lighten the mood, you know? Jake's face lit up, and he bounced in excitement. Yes, I'll grab my music. Let us do it, Mom. As Jake dashed off to prepare, the room fell silent again. Susan took a deep breath, glancing towards the hall where Claire had disappeared. This unexpected moment was a chance to find their way back to each other. Would Claire join them? Would she step away from her fortress? The music started to thump, and Jake's laughter rang out once more. But as the exhilaration pulsed through the air, Susan couldn't shake her worry. She yearned for Claire to join the laughter, for them to share this simple moment instead of hiding behind walls. Before she could dwell on it, Jake re-entered, phone in hand, ready to lead the charge. He beamed. "Okay, here we go. You're gonna love this." The first notes reverberated through the room, embodying a riot of energy, calling for spontaneity. Susan felt her heart flutter with hope. She wanted more than just this small moment. But little did she know, this dance would peel back more layers than just Joy.as. She followed her son's lead. Glancing towards the hallway once more, she couldn't ignore the feeling that everything was about to shift, possibly in a way that neither she nor Claire could have ever anticipated. What awaited them in the revelation of this dance? As the rhythmic beats danced around them, Susan felt a surge of energy pulse through her body, igniting her spirit as she joined in on the fun with Jake. For a moment, all the tension melted away like ice on a warm summer day. Laughter echoed through their small home, weaving between the memories and doubts that had plagued Susan since Claire had entered their lives. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Claire just beyond the doorway, watching them with an expression that was hard to decipher, curiosity mixed with caution. Susan took a leap of faith. "Claire, come join us," she called, extending an inviting hand, her voice beaming with a warmth she had almost forgotten. Jake chimed in, "Yeah, this is family fun. You have to." Claire hesitated, her fixated gaze shifting from Susan to Jake. The tug of his affection weighed heavily on her, but still, she lingered on the fringes. The music pulsing in the background urged her to let go of the barriers she had built. "Why not? It's just for fun," Susan encouraged, her heart pounding with hope and uncertainty. With a deep breath, Claire stepped forward into the light, allowing them to glimpse the woman who had hidden behind her armor of sarcasm. The vibrant dress she wore swirled around her as she approached, and for the first time, Susan saw layers of uncertainty in Claire's eyes that mirrored her own. "All right, but don't judge me too harshly," Claire declared, a small, tentative grin breaking through the facade. All at once, laughter erupted, and together, they danced a trio in the living room, breaking through the walls that had once divided them, molding laughter into a new kind of magic. Susan felt something crack inside her, the strain of conflict softening as they swayed across the room, lost in each other's joy. With every step they took, Claire began to move more freely, the rigid lines of her persona blurring. The air thick with music became a bridge that reached past unspoken words and past judgments. Susan felt herself transition from being a protective mother to becoming part of something hopeful, welcoming the laughter and love into their lives. Every shimmy and twirl pulled them closer, a testament to connection. Suddenly, Claire leaped into the fray, twirling with grace, her laughter bursting forth with abandon. The sound felt like a spark igniting a fire, and Susan's heart swelled. In that shared happiness, the tension of their earlier words began to dissipate. The barriers crumbled, revealing the woman beneath the surface, one who was more than just a mocking fiancée. As the song ended, they collapsed together in a heap of laughter on the floor, a mix of breathy wheezes and joyous shouts filling the room. Susan caught Claire's gaze, and something inside her shifted. There was recognition in the idea that they could exist together, build something beautiful, and set aside the past. "See?" Susan offered, her voice still light. "Dancing makes everything better." Claire chuckled, genuine warmth lighting her face. "I have to admit, I didn't expect this side of you, Susan. And I didn't expect much of you either," Susan replied candidly, every syllable lifting the weight of conflict. "But that doesn't mean we can't make this work." Feeling a new bond form, Jake broke in with excitement. "Let us take a selfie. This is perfect." He jumped up, holding his phone high. As Jake bounded to capture the moment, the three of them crowded together, laughter still bubbling up like the sweetest of beverages. Susan felt her heart swell with joy. The future was uncertain, but maybe that was okay. Maybe they could all become the family she'd always wanted, intertwined yet strong. Jake snapped the picture, preserving that moment, their arms around each other, smiles wide. It was raw and full of promise, the essence of a fresh start painted across their faces. Later that evening, as they lounged in the living room, Claire opened up about her own insecurities, about how her upbringing shaped her views. I always felt the need to prove myself, a fear of not being enough. I wanted to show Jake that I was better above it all, but I see now how wrong I was. Her voice trembled, and for the first time, the underlying pain seeped through. I didn't realize I was pushing you away. Susan felt a rush of empathy. We all have our stories, Claire. It's never too late for change. With that, they began to weave their tales together, sharing laughter, disappointment, fears, and dreams. As the sun dipped low outside, a new light kindled within the walls of that home, binding them with threads of understanding and compassion. As the hours passed, laughter and warmth surrounded them. And for the first time in a long while, Susan took a deep breath, feeling the heaviness in her heart lift. This would be the moment they climbed above the conflicts, a turning point that would secure their bond. Family flawed, genuine, and deeply layered, it was possible. And Susan knew, as the shadows gave way to gentle light, that she would fight for this family. That love always had a way of surfacing through even the deepest cracks. They would rise together stronger, united, and open. Now, let us not forget what this transformation has delivered. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that uplift, inspire, and move us deeply. Leave a like now. Let us feed this algorithm and show just how much love stories can change lives. Comment with your reactions, your feelings about this ending. Let's keep the conversation alive. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey of transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share the power of unity and love.